everybody. We're going to call the meeting of the Carson City School District Board of Trustees to order. It's starting already. It's 6:32 p.m. Sorry for the slight delay. Item 1 is going to be adoption of the agenda as submitted for possible action. Got a motion and a second. Any board discussion? Seeing none. Any public comment on this? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Item 2 is a flag salute. Trustee Walker, if you would lead us off.
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 3 is a superintendent's report. And we're going to have our student representatives. Do we have any student representatives here? You all look so young, I can't tell. Okay, I do have a report for Pioneer that I'll read on their behalf. And I don't see anybody here from Carson High. Do we have any? Well, we'll do a Carson High report from the trustees maybe, once we get there.
If I had internet, yes, but with no internet, no.
Okay.
That's
So
what
I will
did.
lead us off with Pioneer. This week at Pioneer is their week of respect. Monday, students and staff wore pajamas to school and learned about self-care at lunch. Tuesday, students and staff wore purple or any Pioneer swag and participated in campus cleanup during lunch. Wednesday, students are to dress for their future, which means that they will wear clothes that match what their future career goals are. Thursday, students and staff are to wear school-appropriate workout clothes, and then everyone is invited to join us for a salad bar and yoga class at lunch. Friday, students and staff are invited to wear anything that fits within their culture or represents their culture by wearing colors that can be found on their flag. Then at lunch, students are encouraged to write a note to their favorite staff member or friend. Item 2, this year, one of our main goals for Pioneer for the 24-25 school year is to improve the chronic absenteeism. To celebrate the work that they've been doing, out of all of the chronic absenteeisms, they only had 3 students out today. They've been making phone calls on a daily basis to work with students and parents to get them to school. Sorry, they have we in here, and I keep trying to not say we. It's really messing me up. Item 3, on the 16th of October, Pioneer Campus senior students have been invited to attend the UNR-WNC informational presentations, which will be taking place on the Carson campus. Last, item 4, on the 18th and 19th of October, the Carson High Speech and Debate Team program, which is being coached by Mrs. Julian Schuffelt, she's a special education teacher from Pioneer, will be hosting the Carson tournament. They're super excited to host this major event, and if anyone is available and willing to help judge the event, they would love for you to contact them so that they can get you signed up. That's the announcements from Pioneer. And before we move on, I just wanted to make mention that Trustee Ramirez is participating remotely, and I think we're having some issues, so we have her on a cell phone, and I've got her on speaker, so I'll put her up to the microphone so she can participate in the meeting. But that's all I had for Pioneer. It looks like we might not have anything for Carson High. So Superintendent Fueling, I'm sorry.
Just the one is on Friday, October 11th. Please visit Dutch Bros Coffee. $1 for every drink sold will be donated to Carson High Safe Grad Booster Program.
Great, thank you. Superintendent Fueling, do you have any announcements? Yeah. Hey, Lupe, would you, just so it doesn't interfere with the microphones and whatnot here, could you mute yourself until you want to, until you have any input? Is that okay? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, President Cassiopo. First, and I'm sure Trustee Ramirez will speak to this, but had an incredible event over at the High Tech Center a packed house for Dr. Jose Hernandez. Um, the story that made the movie A Million Miles Away. He's an astronaut. That just an incredible story of perseverance and will to make a dream happen for him. So big thanks to Mrs. Chandler and her students for kind of initiating that, and Dr. Tanya Scott, who helped then organize quite a bit with support from her team. It was a fantastic evening, some of the best attendance we've had at any type of community parent engagement event that I have seen in the 10 years I've been here. This week, we have a celebrity chef by the name of John Zaragoza here. He was over at Carson Middle School this morning. He's going to be back on Thursday working at Carson Middle in Eagle Valley, just showing the kids some great culinary skills, getting into their classes, teaching them new things. I think he's going to actually be serving a little bit of the food he's making over at Eagle Valley on Thursday. Thanks to Chartwells for helping make that happen, and Elizabeth Martinez, our nutrition director, and the staff over at Carson Middle and Eagle Valley for helping put that all together. Finally, just want to give a shout out to Carson City Toyota and Dana Whaley in particular. I was over there yesterday for a donation of $2,500 for to cover general school supply costs for kids, and he has been so generous over the years. I think every year since I started here, there have been multiple donations from Dana and the people at Carson City Toyota. So I just wanted to recognize that, and very thankful for all the community partners we have and how generous they are. But the regularity of this and the belief in what we do is just fantastic. So thank you to them.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move on to item 4, board reports, board member comments, and if we could start off with Nevada Association of School Boards. Rich?
Yes, thank you. Number one, I was able to attend the event that you spoke about by Dr. Hernandez, and it was very inspirational. And I agree with you. It's probably the best attended event that we've had since I've been on the board, at least. So wanted to thank everybody involved in that. But for NASB, the only thing I really have is I forgot to mention last time that the award nominations committee met and went through all the nominations for the NASB awards. And I got to tell you this time, and a lot of it's to do with Mike Walker's encouragement, we had a ton of nominations. It was very, very tough to go through them all, and because everybody's deserving, but we were able to come up with what we felt the best candidates were. So, but it was, go ahead.
And Laurel and I both know this from experience. Thank you to you for sitting on that committee, because it is a labor of love and it is a lot of reading. So not only did you have to make a tough decision, but there's a lot of research that goes into that. And so thank you for taking the time to do that.
You're welcome. It took over 8 hours to just go through everything. So, but I was glad to do it. But anyway, that's my report for NASB.
We also have we're hosting the Pacific region. Nevada is hosting the Pacific region up in Tahoe starting on Friday. And so this weekend we'll be meeting with school board trustees, state leaders from Oregon, Alaska, Washington, Nevada. I don't know if Idaho's not in right now. No. So sometimes they came last year, but they didn't participate. They're not a voting member. So that's what's going on with us.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate the report. We'll move on to board member comments and reports. Trustee Crossman.
I also would like to extend thank yous to everyone who helped to put on and bring forth that evening with Jose Hernandez. That was parent engagement at its finest. I loved the way he spoke in Spanish during part of it, and just seeing the kids in their astronaut costumes or NASA t-shirts was just fabulous. So thank you to Mrs. Chandler and Dr. Tanya Scott and anyone else who helped to help make that happen. For Fremont Elementary School, Dr. Ward wants to report that they are starting to schedule parent conferences, which will be the week of October 21st. So if you'd like to get your time slot with your teachers, schedule it earlier. And then also they're looking forward to the math week, which is also starting October 21st. And finally, I'd like to extend congratulations to the 10 new inductees to Carson High School's the Dick Stoddard Hall of Fame for basketball. There's 10 new people being inducted in a dinner starting Saturday night. And I'd like to extend special congratulations to two of my former teammates, Jennifer Gray. Some of you know her as Jennifer Menifee, and Melissa Schreiner. And she's a teacher up at Damani Ranch, and her married name now is Melissa Larson. So anyway, that concludes my report.
Great, thank you. Trustee Varner.
Yes, for Boardwick Bray, Principal Raqueta wanted everyone to know that the cookie dough fundraiser ends Monday, October 14th. Their goal is to sell $33,000 worth of cookie dough. And if they reach that goal, Principal Raqueta and Dr. Cook, the vice principal, have committed to spending the night on top of the building, the school building. So if anybody needs cookie dough, let's help them out and see if they can get them on top of the building.
Is this a winter thing or?
Hopefully it's during this warm spell we're having. Anyway, she says the students are very motivated to see this happen. So like I said, if anybody needs cookie dough, you know where to get it. And also she said that the parent-teacher conferences will be held on October 21st through the 24th. And please sign up for a conference time with your child's teacher if you haven't done so already. That's my report for Boardwick, and I have one also for Fritch. Principal Brown wants parents to know that the staff are looking forward to the parent-teacher conferences coming up the week of October 21st through the 24th. And please look for your RSVP notice from your parents' teacher. And that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Walt.
Well, I have learned my lesson, and I will start printing. I have no internet, so I don't. The only thing I would like to say, though, is last week was the Carson High boys soccer senior night, and I want to thank Superintendent Fueling for attending. He helped escort, but the parents, the students, they mentioned, they noticed that you were in attendance, and they surely appreciated that afterwards. They thought it was a grand gesture on your end for attending and being out there for that. So sorry.
That's all right. Trustee Clapham. Trustee Walker.
So I would concur about our event with NASA, and I think that Mr. Fueling and Trustee Ramirez, as well as Jennifer Chandler, represented us well, and of course, Tanya Scott. So, I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into those things behind the scenes that nobody knows or sees. And so, thanks for being such a great team and advocating for our kids and getting those enriching experiences in. Sealiger Elementary School has a few things to report. Of course, the top news for the Pirates is the pumpkin patch this Saturday from 9 to 2. If you want a pumpkin, probably get there early because they run out early sometimes. They're also really excited about their Pirates Club, which meets in the morning to provide remediation for students who are needing that little bit of extra push. And so they've identified 23 students, and a team of 4 teachers are really giving them a lot of interventions and pushing them forward. So we can't wait to see what those great results are here as the kids test again in a few weeks. And finally, they are thankful to the foundation for the $1,000 donation. They've used that for supplies and incentives for students, and they have been shopping at the end of each week, and thankful to the foundation group.
Thank you. Trustee Ramirez.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. So I also echo everyone's comments about
event on October 3rd. I think it was extremely well planned out. It was a fabulous turnout of parents and students, and it really reflected the student demographic that we have in our district. So I was so pleased to see the magnificent turnout, and of course, there's special thanks to Mrs. Chandler and Dr. Tyler Scott and Dan Davis for all your help in helping us promote this event. It was just magnificent. And of course, you know, the leadership that we have. So Superintendent Philly, thank you so much for being so receptive to these ideas. Sometimes they're crazy, but sometimes they're really good. So thanks to everyone for attending. And I also want to thank the students who introduced Astronaut Jose Hernandez. It was Kevin Tapia, Alexa Zaragoza, Mariana Sarabia, Liz Sanchez, Zambrano. They did a magnificent job introducing them in both English and Spanish. It was wonderful. And then my report from my school, let me just get to it, Eagle Valley Middle School. So Dr. Conley reported that SBAC, there's SBAC recognition happening this weekend. The 7th graders, they had their event today, and the 8th graders are having their event on Friday. And they're going to be recognizing the students for their scores. The students who scored a 3rd and a 4th last year on SBAC tests. They celebrated 6th graders last week who scored as a 5th grader, and then 5th grade teachers from theater schools attended and read their names out loud. So that was really a very nice participation. Walk, bike, or scoot to school day, Wednesday, October 9th. Students will receive hot cocoa and some sweet snacks for walking, biking, or scooting to school when they arrive. Celebrity chef Jonathan Zaragoza, as Superintendent Skilling mentioned, from Global Eats, he's going to be visiting Eagle Valley Middle School on Friday during lunch, and I guess he already visited Carson Middle School on Monday. So just a wonderful way to inspire all those students. And that concludes my report.
Great. Thank you, Lupe. I appreciate that. I already gave mine for Pioneer on behalf of the student representatives. I just want to echo everybody that Dr. Hernandez event was, simply put, it was amazing. We had a tremendous amount of turnout. There were just so many people in attendance. And I want to thank everybody in attendance for being respectful and for, working together so that, it could have been just quite frankly, a mob. And it wasn't. People were, I think the students were very attentive. The families were attentive. Dr. Hernandez, I thought his presentation was exceptional. Certainly an inspiring person. And so thank you for everybody involved in putting that on and making it happen. And, maybe an apology to some of the kids who maybe tried but couldn't get an autograph. Again, there were so many people. And I think Dr. Hernandez did the best he could. But it just was, I couldn't imagine being at like a Taylor Swift event or something. This was insane. I can only imagine what those people go through. Just a little bit. Yeah, they might need 2 or 3 boards. Anyway, thank you for everybody with that. And now we're going to move on to association reports, item 5, for discussion only. Do we have any association reports? Seeing none. Do we have any in-person public comment? That's item 6. Seeing none. I know we don't have any comments that were submitted via email, so we're going to move on to item 7, which is discussion and possible action on approval of recommendations of the Benefits Committee regarding group healthcare insurance plan design and renewal of coverage for the calendar year January 1, 2025 through December 31, 2025. Approval of any insurance coverage may have a fiscal impact up to the amount contained in the budget approval by this board. This is for possible action, and we have Melissa Davies and Dan Sadler.
Missed that part of the agenda.
Thank you, President Cassioppo, members of the board. Actually, I'd like to introduce to you Valerie Clark, the Valerie
Valerie,
Clark.
I'm sorry, I didn't really
That's
look
okay.
up.
of Clark and
I
Associates.
can't read and look up.
Not a problem. And we're here to present to you today information on the annual health insurance renewal. Very pleased working with Valerie Clark and her associates year after year, and this year it was no different. So happy to share that overall we have a 0.0% rate increase for all plans, including medical, life, and dental. And then we also were in a rate lock with our vision insurance, so we had no increase there. Benefits committee with our bargaining units all recommended approval of the proposed plan. So Valerie and her team put a lot of work into this, and very happy to have her here tonight. So I want to turn some time over to her to just kind of step you through as the expert and then see what questions you might have. So I'll turn things over to Valerie.
Thanks, Dan. Good evening, President Cacioppo, members of the board. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. I'm Valerie Clark with Clark and Associates and have been with you for many, many years and enjoy the working relationship that we have. This year was, as usual, a very good year for the school district. We experienced good loss ratios. Last year, as you recall, we experienced very good loss ratios. We came to you with no rate increases last year. This year, the loss ratios jumped up just a little bit. They were up above the 90% range, which we prefer to see them a little bit lower, but we decided to take the benefits out to bid. We shopped all benefits, all medical benefits, and we did receive some bids. Some carriers did decline to quote. They felt they could not be competitive, but we did have 2 carriers that did quote. Ultimately, we give last look to the incumbent carrier, and the incumbent carrier came down to a flat renewal. Started out at 9.4%, and ended up at a flat renewal this year. The dental and vision and life all came in at flat renewals as well, no change. We do have balances that of benefits on the dental plan that the employees don't use that roll over every single year. So we have some employees with some very nice balances on their dental benefits that will roll over again next year. And then, as Dan mentioned to you, the vision insurance through IMED is in the middle of a rate guarantee again. So overall, there will be no changes to the benefit rates at all this year. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Dan or Valerie? Molly?
Thank you. So I was looking, and I guess just clarification, so you have employee only, additional spouse, additional children, additional family. What's additional family?
That's when an employee has a spouse and children on the plan together.
Oh, okay.
So sometimes someone will just want to bring their spouse on the plan and
Right.
not the kids, or maybe bring the kids on the plan and not the spouse. So we have rate tiers for each of those types of coverages. So we have employees who only insure themselves, maybe an employee, and they will bring their children onto the plan. So we call that additional children or child or children. It's the same
Oh,
rate.
okay.
And
And
then
then
they may
one
just
full
want to bring a
family.
spouse. Yeah, and then the family would be the rate for spouse and children
So then
together.
what's additional family? Because there's 4. I guess I don't understand. There's
Well, the
employee.
in this particular group, we separate the employee rate from the dependent rates because of the way the employer contributes to the benefits.
Oh, okay.
So we always pull the dependent rates out so the district can see what their cost is versus what the cost for a dependent premium is. So it could be a spousal premium, it could be child-only premium, or it could be a combined family premium. And that would be, you would add that number on to the employee rate to get the total rate.
Okay. So then when someone retires then, what is their rate when they go to retire?
Retirees are billed the same price
As what?
as an active employee. So retiree rates by law have to be factored in and rated along with the entire group. Now, Medicare under 65 and over 65 may have some differences in the rates, but generally speaking, retirees are factored in with the active employees when we formulate a rate.
Okay. All right. Then I lost my other question. I did have another one, but I lost it. Okay.
Well, anytime if you have questions, it doesn't have to be in the board meeting. If ever you do have any questions, feel free to reach out. We're always available to you.
I am going to make one comment, though,
Mm-hmm.
on this as well. And I don't know that it's any secret to my family's medical history. However, we do have a medical history, 3 out of my 4 kids. And I have to say Prominence has been, in this last year, phenomenal to work with. It took some time to get there, but I now have been able to meet with the head of Prominence to kind of, because we are the only family in the nation in the situation that we're in.
Wow. Okay.
And so to be able to explain that to her when looking at, referrals to doctors and whatever else, because we are fighting, because there's only one doctor that can help my son right now, and he's in Kentucky, and trying to get that referral. And working with them, I do have to say, bottom line, Prominence has been, but like I said, it took some time,
Yeah.
but we've gotten there. And so I just, kudos to Prominence.
And that's Dr. Biondi that you were working
Yeah.
with? Yeah.
And so
She's very good.
she is, and just extremely professional, and in our case, empathetic, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I think, you've been with Prominence for a long time, and, there's a lot you can say against that or for that, but the bottom line is I really do believe, based on my 32 years in this business, that Prominence has been an incredible partner for the school district. I mean, they have, their little hiccups now and then, but overall, they are very responsive to us. I mean, I can call the CEO tomorrow and get something solved if I need to. I usually wouldn't have to go that high. I mean, I have great contacts throughout the company. But I believe this has been a really good relationship for both sides, them and you. And it's a pleasure for me to be a part of that. I really do believe. In rough years, when your loss ratio has been over 100, we still have not seen more than just, single-digit renewal rates, just to get us over that hump. And it's I think, they've been there in tough times, and you guys have been a good partner too. So I'm very proud of that, of being a part of that relationship. I think it's really good. And the employees are happy. I mean, we do, in our benefit committee meetings, we want to hear everything. Sometimes we'll get some tough stuff to deal with. Sometimes it's just happy stuff. But it's always been a relationship that they will act if we need them to act, and they act quickly. Oh, and thank you for that. I appreciate it too.
One additional thing that I want to make sure that we recognize as well is they are also continuing with the reimbursement for the Calm for our employees. That's become more and more popular. Calm.com. We have a partnership with them that Prominence reimburses us for that. And I think the first year we did it, we had around 20% of our employees. And this last year, we're up to 50% of our employees who are utilizing that service. So we're happy to be able to continue that as well.
Yeah, that's been a good thing. They've given us a $12,000 or $13,000 wellness credit to apply towards that, which has covered the majority of the cost. It's been very good. And the beauty of your plan, also, I'll just say, since I have a few minutes, is the fact that you have one of the most amazing high deductible health plan, health savings account programs that I have ever seen. And I do believe it is a very stabilizing force in your benefit package. I think it's been over 20 years now, you have consistently contributed $3,000 a year to the HSA accounts of the participants in the high deductible health plan. And it's, it started out with just a few people, but now more than half your population is on it, and they love it. And I know people in your group who have $50,000 in their health savings accounts now, and they love it. And the word spreads like wildfire, and it really does help to keep your plan stable in terms of pricing. And so kudos to you guys for that, having, that foresight long ago to put that in place and keep it in force.
I guess my question would be, number one, a flat rate is awesome.
Mm.
And so, I mean, you do a great job for us every year.
Thanks.
And so we know you work hard for us, but
Bless you.
I'm wondering, looking forward, it's going to be so important for us to have attractive benefit programs for our employees. And so as a board, our superintendent, are there some programs or components that we might want to start looking into incorporating to make our plan even more stand out? I mean, we have a great plan, but there's always room for growth.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you want to expand your budget to pay for additional items, most of the good things do come with a price. I am you know me, I'm a former school nurse. I am a former public health nurse. I am a huge believer in disability benefits, long-term care benefits. Those are things that you do have on a voluntary basis through your worksite product plans, but you do not have those under a group chassis. They're not expensive relative to what you might pay for health insurance or even dental insurance. And they provide quite a bit of coverage in the event that someone is unable to work and earn a paycheck. Same with long-term care. There is no coverage for long-term care outside of Medicaid. And most people just cannot afford it or cannot get it in a group chassis. It's tough. You have a population size that would warrant, if it's something you want to have me look into, I'm happy to look into what that might look like from a pricing standpoint and plan design standpoint. And yeah, if I work at your pleasure, so whatever you would like to see, those are the types of benefits I feel are extremely important, that a lot of businesses, don't cover. I mean, a lot of them do, but there is a good number that don't. I personally am a believer in disability benefits, even on top of before I would buy a dental benefit, because of the amount of protection it offers for virtually the same price. So that's just my own personal feeling. I have a lot of groups that want that dental and vision, and I'm not saying you shouldn't have it, but if you want to know what I recommend in terms of a value that I believe really truly can protect your people, it would be in the area of disability and long-term care. Mhm.
And I would just want to thank you as well. I mean, a flat rate is awesome. I was looking through the different plans we have, and I think it's important to note that all the co-pays and whatnot stayed the same. The one exception, I think, was the HSA.
Yeah.
There was a slight increase on the individual and
And
family,
that's IRS law.
right,
Mhm.
deductible. But everything else is exactly the same. So, I
Yep.
mean, we went from a potential 9% increase to a flat rate. So thank you for that. Whatever
Absolutely.
magic you pulled off. Well done.
Well, I've been doing this for 32 years. But yes, it's a pleasure, and I very much appreciate your committee. It's one of the best committees I've ever worked with. You guys are a fantastic group of people, and I think you really care about your people, and it shows in our interactions with you as well. It's been a pleasure working with Dan and as well, and Kristen.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that. We appreciate Dan and his folks and what you've done, and so thank you for everybody involved. Any additional questions? Okay, this is an action item. If somebody would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees accept and approve the recommendations of the Benefits Committee as submitted for the renewal of coverage for the calendar year of January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2025, which may have a fiscal impact to the amount contained in the budget approved on this board, by this board.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further board discussion? Seeing none. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Yeah, thank you again. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh.
No pressure.
Item 8, we'll move on to annual review of the manner in which the statewide performance evaluation system for teachers and administrators is carried out in the Carson City School District as required by NRS 391.485, parentheses 2. This is for discussion only. Dan Sadler, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you, President Cassiopo, members of the board. Again, Dan Sadler for the record. And yes, we're here to review the manner in which we carry out the NEPF, our Certified and Administrative Evaluation System. In the last month, got together with our partners at NDE to review some information. I did include my presentation in your packet this time. I don't think I did that last year, but just wanted to make sure you had it. So per NRS 391.485, we need to review this as an LEA each year, so that's why we're here doing this tonight. And I'll kind of just cover the basic structure of the evaluation cycle and just note that it's very similar for administrators and teachers as far as the process goes. The content looks very different as far as the standards and indicators, but the process of the evaluation is very similar. So with the first step in the evaluation cycle begins with the educator, again, whether that's a certified staff member or administrator, starting with their self-assessment. Second step is to go through the pre-evaluation conference, goal setting, and plan development. The third step, obviously, we get into observations and providing feedback, having conferences, reviewing evidence. Step 4 is the mid-cycle review, and that's really focused with the student learning goal, or SLG. I'll get to that in a little bit. And then that fifth step is the completion of the evaluation cycle and the summative evaluation, which is completed through that post-evaluation conference. And it looks a little bit different depending on if you're a first-year probationary, second-year probationary, or third-year probationary teacher or administrator, but the cycle is still the same. So if you are a first-year probationary educator, you're going to be observed sooner in the school year than you would be if you're going to, well, you could still be observed earlier in the school year if you were post-probationary, but it's required by statute that you're observed within a shorter time frame if you're a first-year probationary teacher. So in considering that's the cycle, the weighting of the actual evaluation itself is broken down into educational practice, which is 85% of the evaluation score. 65% of that educational practice is based on instructional practices, and 20% is based on professional responsibilities. So if you're looking at the actual rubrics for the NEPF, you'll see that there's specific standards and indicators for instructional components of what it means to have strong instruction in the classroom. The professional responsibilities are really just that. They're professional goals and growth, different ways that you can follow through on professional obligations, family engagement, and there's actually a student perception module that's involved in that as well. Excuse me, I should say standard and indicator, not module. The student performance, or SLG, is specific to student progress and growth proficiency, and that's something that is decided between the evaluating administrator and the educator themselves. So that's not, how did your SBAC scores turn out, or it could be MAP scores. That's something that we've seen pretty consistently with people, but that's really something that should be a conversation between that teacher and the evaluating administrator to say, what is it that students are going to be learning, and how do we want to measure that progress? And again, coming back to that mid-cycle review, how's it going? Let's check in. Let's see how we're doing with that. Do we need to make any adjustments? So overall, those scores are combined for the summative evaluation score of the staff member. Again, 85% of that is based on instructional practice, 15% based on student performance. These numbers haven't changed to this year, same as they were last year. From an overall scoring range, you can see that highly effective educators and administrators are between 3.6 and 4.0. So the scoring that is broken down into those instructional practice and professional responsibilities is weighted in a formula that is very top secret. I haven't figured out exactly how it works, but the spreadsheet that we use scores it auto scores for us. But basically, if you get exceptional, highly effective on one specific indicator, that counts as a 4. And then if it was something that was ineffective, that would be ranked a 1. And then the weighting gets combined for an overall score. So again, 3.6 to 4.0 is highly effective. 2.8 to 3.59 is effective. 1.91 to 2.79 would be developing, and 1.0 to 1.9 would be ineffective. There's some specific scoring for the SLG rubric that in order to be effective on your evaluation overall, you have to score a 2, 3, or a 4. And then in order to be highly effective on your overall summative rating, you have to score a 3 or a 4 on the SLG. And I just put a note on there that there's been a lot of conversation about adjusting the NEPF. I'm not sure if that's come your way or not, but there's been a lot of conversation at the state level about that. And so the Nevada Board of Education, the TLC, or the Teachers and Leaders Council, and the legislature are going to be considering some possible changes during the upcoming session. And so that may look a little bit different next year, but for right now, the model that I'm sharing with you here tonight is the evaluation that we're using this year. So this is an overview of the ratings for Carson City School District. I will note that that number of teachers down at the bottom has a large chunk of our teachers not represented, and that was really, this is what the state shared with us that came out of our Evaluize program, and there were some evaluations that were completed that didn't get captured in the data. So that number should be higher, and I've worked with NDE on that to kind of figure out how that happened to ensure that that doesn't happen next year, but I've since shared all of the data with them. So there, as an example, I believe we had one ineffective teacher that's not represented here. So there, some of the numbers are not represented accurately from where we ended up. But again, this is what we got back from NDE. Overall, very, very good results. You can see that we have 226 teachers total that are effective, 81 that are highly effective, 82 when we consider the class size adjustment ratio for being highly effective. Anybody who's in the exempt category means that they had 2 years previous as highly effective, so they had an exempt evaluation. It doesn't really exempt you from doing the work, but at the end of it, the summative evaluation looks a little bit different. So really, really good overall numbers here from all of our education professionals here, broken down by groups. This just kind of, you can see I put that little star down at the bottom, the total HE with CSA. This is kind of explaining what that is, because depending on what you teach and the size of your classes, you can get a little boost in your scoring based on how many students you have in your class. So that's been a very minimal impact on scoring in our district. You can see that we had one score that was adjusted up to highly effective based on that class size adjustment ratio. So that really hasn't historically impacted us much at all, but it is something that we have to consider. So an overview of our ratings. This is just kind of sharing what the highest instructional indicators were and professional indicators by different groups. And this is just a good feedback tool for us to kind of look at where we're having success. We don't have any areas where we're scoring low. You can see that like even in our lowest scores overall, we have like a 3.14 for school administrators. And then you can see there's a 3.0 for school nurse. Like that's the average lowest score when you take all people in that category and average it. So our lowest indicators in any area are still looking pretty good, sitting at a 3.0. But this is a good data piece, and I can work with school administrators on this for specific site professional development if they want to break things down and categorize different groups of employees to kind of gear towards professional learning. Overall, you can see that there's a change in that last column as far as indicators going up or down, and the average rating overall right next to that column with the average summative. So again, really, really good overall. Nothing negative in this whatsoever. And I put a lot of information here. I'm going to jump ahead here just for a second, and I'll jump back. my intent was not to review all of this information with you, but really just so that you had it, because this is based on the perception survey that is given by NDE after the evaluation each year. And it's very interesting in that it compares our district overall with the state overall. And this is a 4-year data point. So you can see on the far right there going back to 2020, 2021, and it's perception data, but my evaluation was fair. You can see that that year we had 38.46 strongly agree and 52.88 agree. So overall, that's very good. But then you can see even compared to this year, like we've gone up a little bit. So that's a really good thing. Again, perception data can really inform kind of how things are really going sometimes. My evaluation was more focused on my professional growth rather than awarding a score or rating. We've seen some really good growth in that area over the last couple of years. And then again, just interesting when you compare that to the state overall perception. And this does include everybody in the state data with the exception, I believe, of Washoe County because they have a different evaluation tool. So I'll get back to that in just a second. A little bit more about SLGs. Again, I had highlighted that this really should be a collaborative process so that it's not something that's done to somebody and they're just stuck with whatever happens, because teaching is it's a dynamic art form, right? So as you teach something to students, you assess students and see how they're doing. And if it's going really well, why is it going really well? And if it's not, then why is it not? And how do we make those adjustments? And so the SLG is really a way to do that as a snapshot for overall student progress. And administrators have SLGs as well. It looks a little bit different because they're not teaching a group of students. So a classroom teacher may say, hey, I'm going to choose my second period class. I'm really going to focus on some students who have been struggling academically there, kind of narrow down that group and use that as a control group for measuring that progress. Whereas a school administrator may say, hey, you know what, overall, our EL population has really been struggling with reading, so I'm going to focus on that and what we're doing with professional learning to move those scores forward. But really, SLGs overall, for everybody, is a collaborative process to really reinforce good teaching practice, good instructional leadership practices. That mid-cycle review should take place. I think we created a deadline for everybody in our district to try to get that done by the end of January at the latest, because it's a good check-in. And if it's saying, hey, if we were to score this today, how might that look? And if we need to make adjustments, great, we still have time. We need to go back and do some more observing or some tweaking with things. It's meant to be dynamic and not just locked in and say, well, too bad, that's what you chose. You're stuck with something that's not going to reflect positively. And then the scoring of the SLG, sometimes we get stuck in the language of the rubric. And so, again, I'm going to highlight the word collaborative between administrators and teachers. Have a collaborative conversation as we go through this, because if you want to score level 4, you need to have at least one source of growth or achievement from multiple points in time that show evidence of high growth and high impact for all or nearly all students. That's a pretty lofty goal. It's difficult to score a 4 on an SLG because you have to be able to show evidence for all of that. Moderate, you can see that changes a little bit to score level 3, showing one source of growth or achievement from multiple points in time to show clear evidence of growth and impact for most students. So again, a 4 is all or nearly all. Level 3 would be most students. And then it goes down further from there to where a level 1 would be that you have not met the expectation described in the SLG and that you've demonstrated insufficient impact on student learning. So again, this is not specific to Carson City. This is a statewide evaluation system that's created through statute. And this is something that, again, could change a little bit in the next session. I've heard some rumors about what that might look like, but nothing has moved forward as of yet. So again, just a couple points to share in the survey data. Again, this is still within, excuse me, I'm flipping around here, the certified. So this would represent our teachers and our other licensed education professionals, counselors, library media specialists who are certified. One thing that you may have heard in the past is how much time it takes to complete the NEPF. Has anybody heard that? I have, certainly. But you can see, like, this is from our educators that 18.68% strongly agree and 54.86% agree that it took a reasonable amount of time, of their time. And so that's overall very positive. Certainly, there's still a chunk of people who think they disagree or strongly disagree, but that's trending in the right direction. Those numbers are moving up for that taking a reasonable amount of time. And that's good. That shows that we're getting more knowledgeable about the process, more comfortable with the process, both from the administrators and from the teacher viewpoint, both. My designated evaluator were well-trained in conducting the evaluation. Those numbers are up last year. Almost 92% of teachers agree or strongly agreed with that. So again, I just shared this with you just for your own knowledge to take a look at kind of what that perception data looks like. I'm going to jump forward to the administrator perspective because obviously a much smaller group. This is just highlighting the administrators in our districts, who are our principals, our vice principals, and our administrative deans. But you can see right there, question number 8, my evaluation was fair. 100% of our administrators agree or strongly agree. And we've had high numbers across the board for 4 years, but we haven't had 100%. So that's a huge celebration. The professional development that our administrators had was necessary to implement the feedback and or directives provided during the evaluation cycle. Again, 100%. And look where we were in 2020. We had 36% disagree or strongly disagree. And when you compare it to the state, like our numbers are way up there. And that's a huge celebration. The SLG process was used to drive instructional leadership practice. Again, those numbers are going up, which is a very good positive for us. The time I spent on the evaluation, numbers are going up. We had 46.67% agree or strongly agree with that the time spent was reasonable. And so we're not at 100% there, but we're trending the right direction. And so I think that's just a huge celebration. This, again, was just a note that there's going to be some possible upcoming changes. So any questions that you have about NEPF while I'm here? Yeah.
Thank you. So you mentioned that this is NRS, but why doesn't Washoe County then have to do it?
My understanding is that they're going to be switching to NEPF. So when it first came up, and I'd have to check my research on this, so I don't want to share secondhand information, but my understanding is that they put in for a waiver and were able to show through the evaluation tool they were using that it still met the same standards and indicators, but was a different tool, and that was approved by the state.
Okay.
From the beginning, yeah. As the rest of the state was implementing NEPF, they had applied for a waiver through that process.
And then for the SLG scores, we moved from highly effective, effective developing, ineffective to high, moderate. So why wouldn't we be consistent on a 4, 3, 2, and 1 with the language?
That's a good question. That's just the way it was designed. Yeah, I'm not sure. When you talk about the scoring of the
go
SLG, oh, where'd
So-
it go? I'm jumping
So
all
what-
over
yeah.
the place here. Sorry.
that's
I don't know
okay.
which slide it's on. I'll find it.
So because I reviewed, there.
This one. That's the
here-
overall scoring.
Right, the overall, and then you go to the other one, the SLG, and it's,
There it is. Sorry.
it goes high, moderate, and low, and unsatisfactory. So can you do it consistently, or?
If the state changes that language, sure. This is their rubric.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I reviewed the presentation that they presented in May, and so I was just kind of curious on that.
Yeah.
And then, so when you go, and I see that they moved from indicators to the redesign is more what they call responsibilities. So they'll have their overall standard, and then they call them like professional responsibilities.
So are you talking
that-
about the proposal for making changes? Yeah.
A
So
redesign teacher. So would we be going that route then as well?
if they change that in legislation, then yes, absolutely. And from what I've seen, essentially what it does is instead of having a standard with all these individual indicators, you would get like one score. So like standard 1, you're getting 1 score instead of getting a score for each indicator. Again, this has not been approved, but that's what they
Right.
were discussing.
Okay.
So you'd have like one score for standard one score for standard two, and that those indicators become what you would track for evidence to scoring at that level.
Okay. So,
Kind of add on a little bit to the conversation. The thought being that the focus becomes more on a coaching conversation between the administrator and the teacher. And so the way it's set up now, it's very fragmented. And so it's more like collecting a box of artifacts or having a folder full of stuff, which isn't necessarily effective, where you could look at that lesson and really talk about, okay, here are the 4 components of this standard. I have evidence of this, this, and this. Explain to me how you did this part. And then that could be the discussion of, all right, so here's some other ways you might incorporate that into this lesson, set up some time to come back and see it. So instead of the focus on collecting things, the focus is on the art of teaching. And so we really pushed for that pilot, and the pilot is actually going on right now. So Lyon County's doing it. There's several districts that are doing the pilot now, which should streamline that process, because really what the focus we want it to be on is teaching, like really meeting the needs of kids and not having
Not a
endless
scavenger
meetings.
hunt for evidence.
Yes,
Absolutely.
so is the
Everybody
rubric
feels that way.
redesigned that was proposed then?
It's the exact same rubric, and I could share with you what we have. It's the exact same rubric, except for instead of each indicator as a box that you get a score
Right.
on, all those indicators are bullet points under the standard, which kind of go into the one score for the standard. So you have a score for standard 1, 2, 3,
Right.
4, and 5.
So that's my question then, is that where we're going? Is that the route that you're proposing? Or?
I
to
I think
approach
it's
the
all
redesign?
going to depend on what gets approved at the state
Okay.
level. We don't really get a choice. I might say, I hope it does, because I think that'll lead to exactly what Trustee Walker is describing as a more of a focus on the actual lesson and feedback and collaboration, as opposed to a scavenger hunt for evidence. Because I think it often feels that way for both the administrator and the teacher. And when you're having a conversation about so many standards and indicators, it gets lost in the shuffle often. And maybe there's just one thing we really need to focus on, but you get lost in a bigger conversation. Yeah. Yeah.
Any other comments from the board? Lupe, do you have any comments? Okay, just didn't want to forget you. I thought, Dan, it was no surprise. I thought it was interesting. The staff said, I thought my NEPF evaluation cycle experience took a reasonable amount of time. Most people agreed or strongly agreed that it did. And then on the administrators, I think because they're having to go through so many teachers and whatnot, that they were going, well, we don't quite agree with that. We're struggling a bit
Not-
on this.
Yeah, without
And
a
I
doubt.
think that's a fair assessment. I mean, so I'm glad to see honest feedback from people, because it's, it's time consuming for everybody.
It is.
It's important information, but it does take some time.
And I wonder if they do change to the pilot model, if that will make some of the time more reasonable, if it will
I know,
eliminate.
yeah, I think that's definitely been part of the discussion as to why we might want to make that change, for sure. Yes. Interesting point on that, just while we're here talking about it, though, is when you look at the state data, how different that's been over the years compared to our district. So it's just interesting.
I often say, and I mean it, that Carson City's rare. And people often say, how do people get along so well in your district? And I think it's just kind of like talking with Valerie about the relationship between the district, our employees, prominence. We work together and we compromise when we need to, and we kind of look out for the best interests of the kids. And that's the same with that evaluation process. And so even though we don't always see eye to eye, we could find a way to find a solution. And I think that that's rare, and I think people feel valued because of that. So I think that's one of the things that makes this place special.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I would agree. Well said. I think, that, and you see it in this, like when you talked about the importance of having that, that two-way dialogue and, hey, here's what I saw in my assessment of you, your ability to bring back evidence and say, well, I think for whatever reason, I think maybe you missed this, or I wanted to point this out, and having the ability to do that and have that conversation, I think is really important. And so I'm glad that's part of this.
Very much so. I think especially when you're talking about instructional planning, so much takes place in that conversation that isn't going to necessarily be seen in an observation.
Right.
And so to get that insight, you have to be able to sit down and have that conversation with the teacher, and it really should be collaborative.
Yeah. No, agreed.
Mhm.
Any other input from the board? Okay, Dan, thank you.
Thank you.
And as we know, Dan's not going anywhere. This is a night of Dan. So we're going to move on to, that's as far as I was going with that. We're going to move on to item 9, discussion on possible action to approve newly proposed CCSD policy 1026, reasonable accommodations for victims of domestic violence or sexual assault. This is a second reading and it's for possible action. Dan.
Thank you, President Cacioppo, members of the board. And there was just one suggestion when I brought this forth last time, and I believe it was a spelling error that has been corrected. So no additional changes here in front of you. Again, recommendation here would be to approve as written.
Great. It is an action item. Any comments for Dan, or if not, we'll go to a motion. Yeah, Laurel?
The Carson City's, do you have a question? Okay. Please make them up.
You're already halfway through it, Mike.
I'll move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approved October 8th, 2024 as the adopted date for CCSD policy 1026, reasonable accommodations for victims of domestic violence or sexual assault.
Perfect. We have a motion and a second. Any further board discussion? Seeing none, any public comment on this? Seeing none. Board, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Lupe. Motion carries. Item 10, discussion and possible action to approve newly proposed CCSD policy 1045, military leave. This is second reading for possible action. Mr. Sadler.
President Cacioppo, members of the board, again, second reading here to approve the policy 1045 for military leave. There were no suggested changes, so if there's any questions at this time, again, the recommendation would be to approve as written.
Thank you. Board, Trustee Crossman.
I'll make a motion if there's no other questions.
Please
Okay,
do.
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees approve October 8th, 2024 as the adopted date for CCSD policy 1045, military leave.
Okay, motion and a second. Any board discussion? Seeing none, any public comment on this item? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Lupe is an aye also. Thank you. Motion carries. I jumped in a little too quick. Item 11, approval of the consent agenda. This is for possible action. Motion and a second. Any board discussion? Any public comment? Seeing none. Do you want to come up? Sorry, do you want to come up and? Can she come up or?
Well, we're limited to public comment on the consent agenda.
Yes.
So as long as it has to do with one of the items.
Yeah, as long as there's public comment on this consent agenda topic, we can give you time. Oh,
It's not on the.
that doesn't fall under this. This is a consent, just a general consent agenda. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, typically when we have our overall public comment period, which we typically do at the beginning, near the beginning of the meeting, that's when we would open up public comment for anything within our jurisdiction as the trustees. You could come up and bring it up then. Otherwise, if it's something you're concerned about, you could submit a request and we could see if we could put something like that either on a future agenda topic, or we can put you in touch with the superintendent and we can get you in front of the right people so we can address that. Okay, thank you. Sorry, approval of the consent agenda? We had that already? Okay, we went all around, so back to the board. All those in favor? Thank you. Short attention span theater for me, so. Motion carries. It's a long Tuesday today. Okay, we're going to move on to item 12, informational items for discussion only. No action will be taken. Does the board have any questions on the informational items? Seeing none, we're going to move on to item 13, request for future agenda topics. Does the board have any? Seeing none, last but not least, item 14, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.